this was an unusual song for me because it came about very quickly. I normally take months and months writing songs, and this one I just thought, right, I want to try and write something for communion. I had a little melody idea already in my head. And then I went onto the internet. There's a place called, I think, Cyber Hymnal it was, or somewhere. I just thought I'll just look through some old communion hymns, and they had a sort of standard kind of pattern to them, and some words that they used. And I found one talking about the living bread feeding us, and I just sat on my piano and I sang and played virtually the whole thing. I had to work then on crafting those verses because they got a very tight scheme to them. There's a pattern, there's a shape which repeats the same kind of things that fits in different verbs and nouns and so on. And then the chorus, again, that came pretty quickly. It just flowed out. This is about communion with God and with one another, and it's about us being one in the presence of Jesus. And the Resound team really helped, particularly on that chorus, just that one or two little bits. I originally had da 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 da, we are made one, and somebody said, what about doing we are made one? And then I played it to another guy a couple of weeks ago. He said, just be stronger, that's the centre point, just say we are one, and just one or two little key bits like that, and a nasty little interval that for some reason I thought sounded good in the verses would smooth that. And I think we're just so keen on making this stuff singable that it was great help.
Filled with life divine, this is our communion.
In some contexts, we've almost forgotten that communion is part of worship. It's like a tag-on thing. I don't know if you've ever been in a worship band where you've gone, oh, it's communion this week, oh, we can't do so many songs, as if it's this sort of intrusion into our worship time. Actually, in my mind, communion is the one act of worship that Jesus said, do this in worship. And we've sometimes lost that sense of encounter again in communion, as if all we're doing is remembering it, and we are happy to say we'll encounter God in our songs, but we don't think that we might encounter God in bread and wine. Whereas actually, look at the story of Emmaus. He breaks the bread and suddenly they realise who he is. And so I think having songs for introducing communion helps us to kind of continue that sense of encounter with God into our time of receiving bread and wine.
We've used Jesus You Call Us at our communion services over the past couple of months. I've mainly used it kind of as people are receiving communion. We have kind of sort of serving stations, and people kind of queue up and receive the bread and wine. And so while people are queuing up, we'll always have a song kind of meditating on what it is we're doing. And I have just loved the way that song both really clearly sort of reminds us of the meaning of what we're doing, but then also the third verse really powerfully kind of sends us from the kind of the gathered community at the communion table, and it helps us to look out again at the world that God loves.
Songs, particularly in more traditional services, are unlikely to completely replace the liturgy unless they set the words exactly to music. So I think it's probably something you either sing in preparation for sharing communion together, or it could be something where you kind of have some of your normal spoken prayers that you slot in between the verses, and then you'd sing the final thing. The final verse is really for standing up and sending out together, so that would be right at the end.
This is our communion, gathered here in union with you. We are one. Yours will be the song we sing.
Yep, this is very simple crotchets most of the way through. I'm using a voicing down here, sort of from sort of below middle C mostly. Came in halfway through the intro, so bar 5 with this quite light. And then verse 1 was just very... So just 2 chords per bar. slightly picked up in the second half. Now, the first chorus, I'm playing this 2, 3. Second verse is as verse 1, but the second chorus I picked it up to playing crotchets again, so a slightly fuller part for chorus 2. Etc. Then the third intro is quite light, changing the mood slightly to go into verse 3, which is a little quieter, so I just moved up a little bit higher for that. And in verse 3, quite light in the first half. Picking up a bit. So just going very, very simple crotchets, but just nicely accurate chords, playing, keeping good time. Chorus 3 is the same as the second chorus. I was using that sort of sus chord at the beginning of the chorus, by the way. Nice. When it gets to the outro and the dynamic really drops, and the tempo actually on our version comes back a bit as well, and at that point I went to some quite high chords and very light like this. Same again.
It's in G, so the first one's just open shapes, C, this is the intro, and then the verse, E minor, we did record a second acoustic and we decided to go for capo 3. You probably could work out other capo positions, but it kind of puts you in E. So I've got these nice open shapes here, E, C sharp minor, A, and then B. So you can kind of, with those chords under your belt, you can play the intro. Verse 2. And finally the chorus.
In the intro, and one of the down intros, I play this. And then when the intro gets bigger, I bring in the snare, so you have. Now, I use that groove also for the chorus, and then the verse has the same groove on the hi-hats. So. Now, you may notice there's some ghost notes, and they're slightly swung. And then there was a verse 3, which is a bit down, so it started with the floor tom. And then the second half, we bring in the snare. And I think that's all the parts.
What about the big fill into the...
The big fill. I think it was something like I think it's that.
Lovely.
That's just a Ringo fill.
For Jesus we come to this your table.
It's close.
Played. This is the intro. And it's the same sort of thing all the way through, really. As long as your drummer's doing that rhythm, then you're good. Same for the chorus. Oh no, that's it.
And if you were just making it, you know, towards the end you made it a little bit more interesting, threw in a couple of, just show us a couple of like transitions between the notes you were doing.
Yeah, the verse is quite interesting because there's a few nice chords in the second half. So you're doing, and then it goes to that A minor. You can walk down to the F sharp. That kind of thing would work nicely.